State your name, where you from?
Mike Bravo, born and raised Venice, West Side, West LA. 5 generations out here. Yeah, 6 and Sunset.
5 generations.
5 generations.
Can you tell me what year you were born?
I was born 1974, December.
If it's been 5 generations, how many family members, or what year did your family first move out to Venice? Do you know?
I don't recall the exact year, but it was early mid-20s.
Okay.
There's that picture I showed you earlier from 1926 where they're at the pier.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, at the Venice Boardwalk, and that's they were already here for at least about 5 years at that point. Wow. So yeah.
So probably over 100 years then.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's like a lot of them came from Michoacan, Mexico, after the revolution, and they actually lived in Arizona for a while, Las Cruces, which is where my great grandma was born. And then that photo that I showed you earlier, she's like maybe like 12 or 13 in that photo. Wow. And that was 1926. So, yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah, very, very, very. I was born here, and then we moved to Mar Vista, like off of kind of like Culver and Centinela.
Okay.
And so we're over on Walsh Avenue, but like I said, everything we've always done was always been based in Venice.
What was Venice when you were a kid? Can you describe Venice to me?
Oh man, because most of my memories come from you know, when I was like pre 8 years old. My dad, he was Mousy from Venice, and he died in '83. He was killed over here by the park, you know, right after the crack started or whatever. And so like, thank you. And so most of my memories are from rolling around with him in the car, you know. At the time I thought it was just like adventures. I'm going for ice cream or whatever too, but he's doing what he's doing, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, from his gangster, you know, world or whatever. I'm just like enjoying ice cream and just, you know, going to Abbot Kinney, just, you know, and it was a lot different back there. Just like more kind of just simple hometown, like businesses, and not so kind of like, you know, bougie and like, you know, pretentious stuff. It's just like a nice, cool neighborhood with, you know, all the like the local amenities, like, you know, mechanics, liquor stores, gas stations, things of that nature. And it's kind of hard too, like looking back, because it's like stuff's gradually changed for a while. So sometimes I forget like, hey, what year is that or what year was this, and then like, you know, in the certain years I wasn't around. You know, my dad died when I was like 7, on the verge of 8. So it's like after my dad died, like my family, you know, Bravo family, my mom didn't really want me in Venice. You know, because, you know, like you know, because first of all, like having a lot of family here, and then the Bravo family, and then like, you know, the pattern was like something was gonna happen to me. So I was still here, but I just wasn't here like all the time. I went to Catholic school. She didn't want me in public schools or whatever, because, you know, what happened to my dad, and then just the patterns of a lot of black and brown folks in Venice, you know. So
you have a favorite childhood memory then in Venice?
Oh, dude. Childhood memory. I remember when I was a little kid, my other grandma. Okay, this is my great grandma's house where we're at, and then my grandma had a house over on 3rd Street, 3rd and Strand in Hollister, right? And then I remember I was probably like maybe around like 10, and I was with my cousin, little white kid named Dylan. He was like 7 years old because my grandma used to babysit him. And we were skateboarding down here, but like, you know, my grandma said, don't go to Venice. Yeah. So you stay in, you know, don't go past, you know, Santa Monica, whatever, you know. Like, yeah, so we skate down to the boardwalk, and we always come to Venice, of course, too. But, and then we got our skateboards jacked, right? Some older kids from like South Central, whatever, and whatever, they came back like, crying like, oh shit, you know, we lost our skateboards. And then Dylan's mom ended up taking us back to go look for him, right? And now, you know, the skater Nodis Coppice, Santa Monica Airlines. He's at the time, he was like one of the top skaters of the time, and he, you know, I think to this day probably the highest ollier ever or whatever. And so he was there skating, whatever, and we're looking, and then we saw them, and they started running, and I just remember he kind of like, he's on the skateboard. It's like a movie, man. On the skateboard, he rolled, and he grabbed like one of the kids and like carried them back, and then we ended up, you know, getting our skateboards back and stuff. But just, it was kind of like a little skateboard movie hero type of scenario. Yeah. I mean, that's one significant thing that comes to mind, because when I grew up, I was mostly a skater. You know, 'cause my uncle from Suicidal, yeah. I had the skateboards. At that time, they owned Streets of Venice right there on, I think it's that tarot card place next to Hoagie's right there, or whatever it is now. So I had all like the free skateboards and the wheels. So I was just all about skateboarding and, you know, the punk music at the time. So that was more my thing as a little kid, you know. Yeah. But besides that, it's just, you know, family memories. You know, like I said, just, you know, in this house here, like we have 5 generations, the parties, you know, the Christmases, growing up with a lot of my cousins, a lot of family, walking out and be able to kind of just go out and know people. I'm just thankful in this corner, we still have a lot of people that we know. I can walk out and say, hey, what's up, Tony, or whatever, you know. There's still people, it's like one of the least gentrified corners in the area, I would say.
Yeah.
And then just in general, that's like the general family, community, vibe that was, like I said, it's still, reminiscent on this corner, but it's not as deep as it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you feel like that transition started to happen where you wouldn't feel the family vibe with throughout Venice?
As we know, like that war that happened in the 90s.
Was your grandmother living here too?
Oh, yeah. All my grandmas were living here. Up until then, I was like here like every weekend. Spent all my Christmases here, all my holidays here, whatever. Either here at Santa Monica or whatever, just, do my thing. And when the war hit, at the time, everybody's kind of like, bald head, white t-shirt, even if you weren't banging, you have a certain kind of a hood style, So it's like, no one was kind of exempt from, bullets. Now, bullets don't have no names, as they say, right? So, yeah, I would say like around that time, I started coming here less, because I wasn't a gangster, so I really wasn't, about that, whatever. And then from there, like, it just seemed like the community got divided more, a lot more, the tension, the grudges, and that's when, the gang junctions came in too, and that's, the gang junction was a precursor for gentrification. It sets the primer for all that real estate speculation, which was already planned like probably, decades before that maybe, So from there, it really started dissipating for me. One, because I wasn't around as much, and at the same time, like just not feeling that same general like community unity. I feel like a lot of the low income, but especially the black and brown community, like when we at least have a certain level of solidarity with each other, that's like no one can really fuck with that. You know what I'm saying? So they had to really disrupt that.
The war was happening in Venice. Were you like ever scared for your life, or did you fear for your life because of how crazy the atmosphere was?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, especially at that time too. Like looking back, I was very lucky. Like I said, I wasn't a gangster, but like I had the bald head. You know what I mean? And first off the NWA albums, and it's like gang banging music is full effect. And like I said, just from the hood, you just have a certain style.
Yeah.
So whether you're technically from the gang or not, you're still like I can get shot right now for like someone thinking I'm from Venice. I mean from the hood, even though I'm not like rolling like that, but just because of my association, my look or my color. But yeah, and I remember when I would come, my grandma, I had to walk in with guns. People had to escort me back to my mom and us to the car for the holidays, whatever. Like it was kind of like like entourage almost. Know what I mean? Like for family events, it's like it's crazy. You know what I mean? The hood always gotta be careful and whatever, and people keeping an eye out. But where it's like just like it's not really what you want to be doing. It's like I'm just gonna go visit my grandma, homie, and chill out, whatever. It's like, but it was wild, dude. It was wild. Yeah. Venice has a very distinct aura. The neighborhood, the city. Well, technical thing is, a lot of people call it a city, but it's not a city. It used to be a city way back in the, I think it got annexed by LA City like in 1920 something, 21 or whatever. But it's a neighborhood under LA, But it has like that city status or that image or that feel, because it's very distinct from the rest of LA.
Do you have favorite spot or favorite places that you have in Venice, or that you like in Venice, I should say?
Right. Well, the breakwater. It's breakwater just because I have a lot of memories of going there as a kid. Back when they had the pipe, like that old pipe that was still there, and all the little crabs would kind of hang out right there or under there. We catch little crabs or big crabs, take them home. I just really love, honestly, just rolling through the neighborhood, dude. Like, it's, got all these, a lot of things have been demoed, or there's a lot of like newer big old boxes up there, those houses now. But like just rolling through the neighborhood and just like, going by the canals and just seeing the architecture, you could just feel like, you can still feel, a lot of people aren't around no more, whether, however they're not here, either they're still alive, they're not, like you can still feel like those spirits like in the streets, for better or for worse, so. But if I had one spot, it'd be like the breakwater, but like, I'm talking about like 80s breakwater, or at least late 70s breakwater. And then just, like I said, just cruising down 6 or, down Westminster on Sunset, the little path that used to be at the end of Sunset, little bridge, underneath. Going across Pacific, just little cutty spots. Just being a Venetian in Venice, like when you're moving in motion around your board or whatever, that's really what I dig, Yeah.
When you were growing up in Venice, even as like a teenager or young adult, would you ever have imagined Venice looking like the way it does now?
No, I think for the most part, like a lot of black and brown folks, we're not like, we don't think about, all the time we're just too busy surviving day to day.
Yeah.
Whatever, and then especially as a young kid, like, okay, and especially if you grew up in poverty, you're like, okay, I just want to have fun, or I want to be a baller, I want to be this and that. We're thinking about more kind of material, immediate kind of gratification type of thing. We're thinking like long term, And so I didn't think it was gonna happen, you know. But I remember the first time hearing about gentrification. It wasn't even that word. My tia Lindsay lived over here off of there's a Flower Court right here. So then the Flower Court in 7th, she lived right there in those apartments. But I remember she did an interview with somebody, some magazine, or if it was the Beachhead or what. But she was talking about how like these white folks started moving in and started kind of like putting up like these little taller kind of like bamboo fences or whatever, and kind of like snubbing their nose. That's the first time I heard about like someone expressing this influx of people who didn't want to be from the community and who were shunning the locals. And then I started kind of hearing like a little more of that occurrence happening. But yeah, I would have imagined that's, I want to say that was like, let's see, 88 maybe. I want to say 88, because as far as I think, like gentrification was like in full step into like maybe like around the time of the war started happening. I remember like where people were complaining about, oh, like they couldn't get their moving trucks in because the police were everywhere or whatever, things like that. But so it was about a handful of years before that, so about 88, 87, I first heard about people moving in and not being good neighbors, you know, being very distinctly not neighborly. Yeah.
Do you feel like it's a certain type of person that would come to a neighborhood and not want to know their neighbor? You feel like that's a certain type of individual?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you never know who comes from where or whose background's what or what they've been through, you know, but like in general, like it's, you know, it's usually people who are not multicultural, who haven't been exposed into, you know, a diverse neighborhood, you know. So like it could be people from Midwest, East Coast, you know, or just highly privileged people. A lot of times, you know, the relationship between class and race, as far as like most affluent people being, you know, being white, you know, and if people of color are like affluent, a lot of times they've had to kind of like sacrifice their culture and their identity to kind of achieve that class, you know, elevation, so to speak, you know.
Yeah.
But if people who like aren't exposed to multiculturalism, or I mean, it could be their religion, and who knows? I mean, that their dad could have been Klan, you know. I mean, you never know who's who or who came from what or whatever happened, you know. But like, it's usually distinct, rich neighborhoods who have more privilege in terms of like not being around other, you know, poor, which are usually black and brown folks. Less tolerance, because even with Venice too, it's like back in the day, like a lot of the, you know, poor black, poor brown, poor Asian, poor white, Jewish folks, whatever. So there was like, you know, there's still differences as far as like how the races are treated. Like there's kind of a class solidarity because most of us were pretty poor and very humble people. So there was understanding between each other for the most part, you know, that you probably couldn't get anywhere else really.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Because even like in South Central or East LA, like, you know, those communities that they're very distinctly, you know, either they're like 95% black or brown, whatever. So a lot of times they don't get that class exposure.
Do you think that Venice will ever be the type of community that is like very much community oriented again? Or do you think that the way that Venice is going, it's probably going to stay in that route?
Oh, I think it can be. We've got to make it happen.
Yeah.
You know, it just one has to be very mindful of our history, have historical context for, you know, like how this stuff happens. I tell people like a lot of these things for gentrification, this stuff like was planned like at least like 20 years, 30 years in advance. Yeah. I don't know if people are familiar with the Oakwood plan.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to make sure that we kind of, you know, study history and study these principles that have made us lose our grounding here or have decentered us from our power, whether it's our spiritual power, our mental power, our economic power, and make sure we don't fall for the same tricks, you know, and then two, make our own plan on our own terms and just follow through with them. If you like this content, make sure you subscribe to GV Local.